Hey, it's John and Mike, brew-stouts.com. We are drinking somebody else's homebrew because it's part of our beer exchange. This is Beer Swap number 23, coming from a guy named Brian in Texas. And he has his own home brewery. He calls it Big Paw Brewery. He sent us two Russian Imperial Stouts. They're just slightly different from each other. I think they were basically the same batch. He brewed two 5-gallon batches, same recipe. Only difference is how they were aged. And we'll go through the stats and tell you about what went into this beer, and then we'll tell you about the difference. Original gravity was 1094. That's a pretty good Russian Imperial Stout original gravity, I have to say. Now, the beer number one, that had a final gravity of 1019. Beer number two had a final gravity of 1017. The IBUs are around 70. And the grain bill is as follows: 80% Maris Otter, 4% Special B, 4% Flaked Barley, 3% Carafa 3, 2% Aromatic Malt, 2% Crystal 40 Malt, 2% Roasted Barley, 1% Black Patent Malt, 1% of Crystal 120 Malt, and 1% of Chocolate Malt. He hopped with Styrian Goldings, Pearl or Pearly, and Magnum for 75 minutes for 64 IBUs. And then he threw in Centennial, more Styrian Goldings, Willamette, and Palisade hops for a 10-minute Whirlpool for another 6 IBUs. He then fermented with White Labs WLP001 for 1 month. During the last 14 days of primary fermentation, he added to each 5-gallon batch 1 ounce of medium toast Hungarian oak that had been soaking in 12 ounces of port wine for 3 weeks. Both the oak and the wine were added into primary. He just dumped the whole thing.
Oh, and the wine.
Yeah,
okay,
all the way in there. And then he kegged the beers to the final gravity that he noted, and then oaked again for another month in each 5-gallon batch. This oaking, this stage, he used 1 ounce of medium toast in the Hungarian oaked version. That was for 30 days. Again, 30 days. The other batch had American oak. I guess he ran out of Hungarian oak. So then he removed the oak from the beer. It was allowed to age for initial 10 months at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. He just bottled it here in November of 2017 on the 3rd. And that is what we have in front of us. This is named Zora. And it is named after I think it's a Slavic goddess. She protects us from some demon dog.
Goddess of the Evening Star.
Yes, that's who she is. Thank goodness for her.
Yep.
Now, if I mean, in Russian Imperial Stouts, they're a wonderful beer. He wrote to us and said, "I'd like to get some feedback because I'm going to brew this again." So we have to consult not only BJCP, but also this awesome little malt chart graph that I got here.
Great. And the plane tickets to Texas to brew with him, those are, where did those go?
They'll be coming if we, ask real nicely, I guess.
We're coming, Brian, we're coming.
Okay, so one was like the last phase of aging was on American oak. The other one was Hungarian. My first question to you is, could you tell any difference?
I'm getting a slight aromatic difference, yes, on the two.
Interesting.
You noted when we poured them pre-rolling the camera that the Hungarian oak looked like it had a slightly darker head to it, right? Mm-hmm. When I smell them, I get, in the American version, I get a little bit more of there's more of a roasted malt, chocolate malt presence in that aroma. It's not strongly chocolate, but that's the best way I can describe it. In comparison to the Hungarian oak one, I actually get more of the wine port character in the Hungarian oak aroma.
Yeah.
I really can't say whether or not I'm getting a difference in oak aroma on the two, but there's more port wine here than there is here. This seems to be more of the base beer's aroma coming through. Would you concur?
I think so, yeah. I think that's what I would say. And that may just be, I don't think that had to do with the last stage of oaking. I think that probably had to do with when he poured in.
Sure.
One was affected more than the other. The American batch actually finished out a little drier than the Hungarian batch. If we go
That's
back,
interesting.
when I was saying beer one, I was talking about the Hungarian batch. That's final gravity was 1019.
Yeah.
The American batch 1017.
Yeah. So the American batch, to sort of jump ahead, I definitely get a fuller and a lasting, slicker. There's a slick mouthfeel in the American oak version. This version, the Hungarian oak version, tastes drier. The mouthfeel isn't as big. It's still got a pretty good amount. It's still medium high
full,
mouthfeel.
but this is chewier.
But this is chewy,
Yeah.
slick.
Yeah.
There's the slickness there isn't as much slickness in this one. Now, as far as the port character goes, I think I definitely pick up a little more port character here in the Hungarian again than I do in the American oak. But in the American oak version, I think I'm tasting more vanilla. I think I'm getting more of the very complex base malt. I mean, all the specialty malts in here that are making this such a complex beer. There's definitely more malt character here, I think, than here, which is ridiculous to say because they're both so big, which they should be. Side note, of course, a guy from Texas has sent us big beer, right? So that's tremendous.
That's true. So what do you think of, I mean, he hits it with the appearance, that's for sure. Flavor really should be rich, deep, complex, frequently quite intense.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, he's hitting all that. I like the fruity esters that are in there.
It's hard to say if the fruity esters versus the port wine character. Like there's a balance there.
Sure.
I'm not really sure how much of it is. There's definitely fermentation character there, but with that port wine in there, I almost wonder if that's like on top of the esters and sort of masking some of the esters. Yes, both of them are very intense in their flavor profile. There's a big punch of flavor.
Yep. What about like dark fruit? They always talk about.
Yeah. Again, I think it comes back to
raisins and things.
There's definitely some raisin quality to it. The port wine is probably playing with that a little bit. So I'm not sure if I'm getting a lot of that as fermentation character, or if it's just really the wine and just a little bit of aging. There's a little bit of oxidation gives you some of that character too. And this was bottled not too long ago. So I don't know.
What about as I look at this, like, how about your chocolate, your coffee, your cacao notes, like cacao? Because that to me, I would like more of that in this style of beer, and I'm not getting a lot of that. There's some maybe bitter coffee notes there, but
so I think to me the flavor profile, it's big and it's intense. And the oak and the port wine are giving it some complexity, but based on that grain bill and everything that's in there, it's almost, I think, the flavor profile for me, it's almost a little bit too much because I can't really pull out and say there's a distinct coffee note or a distinct caramel note or a distinct chocolate note. It's more of just dark beer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I almost sort of feel, I think they're both enjoyable. I like them. I'm just wondering, based on the complexity of the recipe, if it might be 3 ingredients too much, because you can start to just, if you keep adding ingredients, you might be sort of muddying what it is you're really going after. Right?
Yep.
So I think they're both great, and I think maybe they age another 4 months. I'd love to see what that tastes like, and maybe then something would start to come out. In the Hungarian version, just smelling it again now, I am starting to get a little caramel. I'm starting to get a little more of a sweet chocolate, a sweet roasted note. But the overall flavor profile is still just one big blast. They both got a little bit of, there's certainly an alcohol there, There's a little bit of alcohol heat there, but not in a really negative, detracting way.
Yeah.
They're big beers, so that's decent.
I think that there's a note in the BJCP description under overall impression, and it says, like a black barley wine with every dimension of flavor coming into play. So you really need to have, your
There's
dark
definitely a
fruits.
barley wine character to it.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's for sure. But is there a few notes missing? I guess is the question to you.
Yeah, I think I just might. What I'm trying to say is that it needs to be a complex beer. You want the flavor profile to be complex, but you do want to focus on one or two characters that really stand out.
Yeah.
And give it an identity. I think in this case, like the port wine is giving it its identity, right? But it doesn't necessarily scream out to me.
This was
Rich roasty stout.
Sure.
Right? Big Russian Imperial Stout. Now, I don't brew a lot of these. Don't drink a lot of these. Like I said, I think these are good examples. I just think a slight simplification of the recipe might help.
Yep.
Like the roasted barley is good. I'm not sure what the aromatic is bringing to the party, especially when you're using Maris Otter. Crystal 120 and Special B, that's a little bit redundant. They taste slightly different, but 4% Special B is definitely drowning out 1% Crystal 120.
Right, yep.
I think.
Yep.
Right? You could probably get away with getting like a pale chocolate in there in place of the real chocolate. Black Patent, the Black Patent, the Crystal 120, and the chocolate malt at 1% could probably go. Bring in 3% pale chocolate, and
See how
I
that
think you
goes.
might be, and drop the aromatic. I don't know. It's just me. And the Carafa 3, I don't know if that's Carafa Special, the unhusked stuff. I mean, if you went to the unhusked version, you might let some of the roasted barley character speak out. I would use a software calculator. Look at what this recipe calculates for a color, because I think this color is great.
Oh yeah. I mean the look is spot on.
And then if you change it up that way, see if you still get the same color. I mean, it might be a point or two lower, but you can always bump up another ounce of roasted barley, another ounce of chocolate malt or something, or blend some pale chocolate and darker chocolate. But that being said, if you like this recipe, Brian, go with it. I'm just sort of like splitting hairs.
Yeah, I think that we're just looking for things.
I'm just
to point out.
spitballing some ideas based on because I've been thinking about brewing one of these, and I'm looking at that recipe going, okay, I mean, that's what I would maybe try and do. So
Yeah. I think it's like you want your big caramel, you want your big chocolate, you want your dark fruit, which I think comes from like just having a gravity that high and the yeast doing its thing.
a totally different direction you could take with this.
Okay.
All the specialty malts stay the same, but take the 80% Maris Otter and put it down to 40% Maris Otter and 40% just plain American two-row, which would soften some of the Maris Otter character and might let that specialty malt
Come through.
punch through a little bit more. Because I have noticed that just the amount of maltiness and biscuitness that Maris Otter can bring to a beer can sometimes drown out other beers.
Especially.
I've had comments on things I've sent in the competition where they definitely say there's just a lot of Maris Otter character here, and I'm losing some of the specialty malts. So that's another idea too.
I like
of course,
that.
now you're talking about brewing 2 beers instead of 1, but just ideas, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So overall, I think on most of the notes, I mean, this is a good example of the style. It is a intense, rich, dark ale with lots of barley wine notes. I mean, I think certainly starting at that gravity and finishing out with the same kind of fullness that you have in both these examples. I think macro notes, certainly they've been hit. If you want to tweak some of the things, maybe simplifying the grain bill would be part of it. Maybe switching out your base malt for something that's a little more neutral, like American two-row. So some of those more specialty malts, their characteristics come flowing through in the finished beer.
If you've already tried some of the ideas, comment, put those in the comments so that other people can read it too and be like, those guys don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Which one do you like? If you had to pick one, which one do you like?
I think the American batch is the one that I like more.
Good for
That's
you.
why I like this one. It's
Great.
It's a little richer. It has less of that the port or the kind of more of a that sherry, winey kind of. I think the body here is just a little bit different than this one.
This one's my favorite.
Oh, all right.
I like this one. Only
good for
because
you.
I'm starting to get some caramel come through it, and I still like the.
Well, I'm going to take this bottle home.
Okay, well I'll keep this one.
All right. So that's us. Appreciate the exchange, and hopefully
As always.
these notes have been helpful. If you like to share your homebrew, let us know. You can always email us by using the contact us form. Not a form, but go to that page and you'll see how to email us. It's just dudes@brew-dudes.com.
Just that easy.
And we'll respond to you. I'll give you my address and you can send it to us. So that's it. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Keep brewing in Texas.
Thanks so much.
For John and Mike, brew-dudes.com. Brew on.
Cheers.